20 students in a class. We're far above that. And I think we have felt the impact of that, and I'm fearful that we're going to continue to feel the impact of that if we do not get some relief in the way of additional teachers to lessen those class sizes.
Good, thank you, John. Chris, I know that you're faced with or the district is faced with a compliance audit in special education this coming spring. Can you talk a little bit about how that audit, why that audit is important, and what happens when you're out of compliance, and also in terms of ELL, or English language learners? I suspect many people don't quite understand that we have an issue here in North Reading.
Sure. We have something, every community in the Commonwealth has to go through what's called a coordinated program review. And it's to make sure that our practices and procedures in special ed, in civil rights, and in teaching children who their primary language is not English meet the federal and state guidelines. And Pam Bowden and I have been working on this pretty much since last November on a daily basis. It's an enormous task to make sure that you meet all the federal and state compliance rules. If you do not, you are in jeopardy of losing your federal funds. For this community, it is over $500,000. So you want to make sure that we are doing our jobs and that we are in compliance. That's one piece of it. The other thing is, it's the right thing to do for your children. And we need to follow those rules. If we don't, we have to do what's something that's called a corrective action plan. And that's after the Department of Education will be here for a week. They'll be here the week of April 14th to the 18th. And they will be going into classrooms, reviewing student records, looking at our policies and procedures, interviewing staff from the superintendent down to a paraprofessional. It's an enormous review. 4 people come, and it's very lengthy. They interview parents in the special ed area. They'll be getting surveys, and also for students who have English as a second language, the parents receive surveys. So this is a big deal, and we need to make sure that it's done correctly. I think the most important thing, however, is that people are not aware that in the last 3 years we've gone from 2 students whose primary language was not English to 16 this year. These are children who come from homes where their primary language is different, and in North Reading's case, typically it's generally Hispanic languages. We are being represented by those 16 children have 10 primary languages: Ukrainian, Dutch, Bulgarian, Tagalog, which is a Filipino dialect, French, German, Arabic, and Spanish, and Portuguese. So we are looking at an enormous diversity, and we are required by state and federal law to provide something called sheltered English immersion, which is working with students whose primary language is not English and teaching them English, and at the same time teaching them our curriculum frameworks. We need to do this. These children deserve this, and we have done an extraordinary job with a 33-hour-a-week tutor. The children are passing MCAS. They are doing quite well, but as it increases, the demand increases. They're spread across the district from kindergarten to 12th grade. So that tutor is on the road to all 5 schools on a daily basis. And so it's really a huge demand. And it will, I believe it will only increase.
Thank you, Chris. Pam, if I could maybe direct a question to you. As Director of Curriculum and Technology, Pam's responsibility is managing the curriculum K-12, also supporting teachers, mentor programs, professional development, and is also responsible, the other, actually 75% of her job is focused on the overall coordination of technology. The first part, we've had tremendous staff turnover in the last 4 to 5 years. With 200 base teaching staff, we've hired anywhere each year from 30 to 38 new teachers into our district. And when you think about teachers in the first, second, and third year of employment, out of the 200 teachers, approximately 90 of them are in the first 1, 2, and third year of work. Your job is to really bring those people into our district. And what can you tell us about the impact of either abolishing the mentor program or diminishing professional development, and just how do you get people to do what they're supposed to be doing?
Well, I think we're in a position with the mentor program that 2 years ago we were looking at how to expand it, because we did have such a high percentage of new teachers coming into the district, to be on par with other neighboring districts which offered a 2-year program. We've always offered a 1-year program. So I think we're in a bit of a catch-22 where the more new teachers we bring in, the fewer available mentors we have, the fewer resources we have to train the mentors, the less support there is for the new teachers coming in, and we get into a bit of a vicious cycle. This year, our faculty, and I think as I listen to all of the principals talk about what's going on in their building, the faculty has really risen to the occasion and still offered mentoring services to our new people coming in. It is a reduced program. We still offer a new induction program which brings new teachers together several times over the course of the year, but it's not nearly as robust as we need it to be in order to really develop these people in their skills. We have a responsibility in a state mandate to provide them mentoring, and I think we have a responsibility collegially to help bring them along and help them learn their craft, because a lot of the people we're bringing in aren't veteran teachers and are brand new to the profession. And we know that it takes 3 to 5 years to really develop the skills and become confident in the classroom. Back to the faculty, if I may, I'm really amazed, and I get to work with them in the capacity usually of building the program and expanding the program and helping us get to where we know we need to be competitive with other districts, to make our kids competitive in the future. And 2 years ago, I mean, I think of what Bill said about the health of PE fear. We were able to go from, when I started here, having no really cohesive inter-school program for PE, to last year being on the verge of being able to launch into a health fair, do Walk Across America, joint activities. We're in a building process, and all those plans still sit there on the table, and teachers are still willing and anxious to implement them, and I'm very concerned at how long will these people still be willing to keep planning and building for the future when they feel like every time we build, we hit a dead end because we can't execute the plans that exist. I mean, we have a wonderful staff that still comes committed every day, but we're getting to the point where we're planning for something we know we can't ever bring to fruition. So that's one of the ways in which budget cuts, I think, not only impacts new teachers, because if they start to see this frustration develop, it becomes a frustrating environment for them, and we're not able to give them the support they need to kind of find their way through it. I probably could go on, but I'll turn it back over to you, Billy.
Great, thanks. I'd just like to end the status quo discussion with maybe just one comment of what has been the most difficult challenge this year with managing these cuts.
I said this a year ago after the vote, and it was the first thing I said to my staff. I said my biggest challenge this year was picking people's chins up off the floor, including my own. School climate is absolutely huge in order to be effective, where people have a joy and a passion, where we can play nicely, where we can discuss nicely, sometimes argue nicely. That's been my biggest challenge this year, and I've probably been more grumpy than I've ever been, and I've got a few staff that probably have shared some of that as well. It's just been a very, very huge challenge.
John?
I feel we're shortchanging kids. I think we are better community than what we're currently able to provide, given the constraints that we're under financially. That's been very disappointing to me. It's a wonderful community. For a time I lived here. I have wonderful students that come in every day eager and are still working hard. And it's an exciting time of year to be in a high school right now, because a lot of college acceptances are coming in, and students are excited because they're starting to, they're on the cusp of that next chapter of their lives. I think teachers have risen to the occasion clearly. They're overtaxed. They're working hard. They're still doing what they need to do to provide the kind of an educational program that students deserve. But I worry that if it doesn't change for the next school year, it's going to have some really serious consequences for students.
I'd like to add one thing. This is the first year since I've been here where I am writing a number of recommendations for teachers who are covering all the bases, because if things get worse, they're out of here. And I'm talking about outstanding staff. It's never happened before.
My greatest concern is the cumulative effect of the cuts. We feel like we're making targeted strategic cuts, but all of them, it takes 12 years of an education to produce a North Reading student. So what happens at the elementary, what happens when we can't provide enough reading services in the beginning, it's going to catch up to kids in the middle school and in the high school. Everything is contingent upon what comes before. So my greatest concern is, how do we look to the future and keep our eye on the fact that what we're doing today is going to, we may not see the impact of it until 5 or 6 years from now.
Sometimes I feel like you're asking me which leg would I like to have amputated. I know when I have to go, my obligation is to the special needs students, but I feel my obligation is to every kid in this district. And the special needs students are mandated funding. It's not a choice. And I know when I have to walk down the hall to Dr. Troughton's office and say, I have to send this kid to an out-of-district placement. I need another paraprofessional to support this child, that I'm taking it away from general ed. That's where it's coming from. And it's your kids that it impacts. All of them. The special needs students, the general ed kids. It's everybody. And it's not fair to ask us to do that. Which one do you want me to amputate?
I think we all feel the biggest obligation to the kids, and for me, it's giving teachers what they need in order to make this the best place for kids. That's the biggest challenge, being the person who's there to listen, providing the resources, and there's always a fine line every single day between discouragement and inspiration. You know, you take a hit, you might come in, you might wake up discouraged, you come to school, you see the kids, you're inspired to do something to make a difference. I said time was really tough, that impacts behavior. Kids spend a long time in the classroom, they start acting up, teachers get discouraged, and then they turn around and they're inspired to do something to make a difference in that classroom during that day for those kids. So it's really a fine line every day that we walk.
I would echo what Thea says. I think that my staff comes in every day trying to do the very best they can. I know there are frustrations and all that, and it is thanks to being in an elementary school. You know, the kids don't know anything about this, more or less. They come in and still enjoy school, and you do your very best for them, so they are very uplifting. I think that our frustration over several years is the amount of time that the superintendent has to spend leading discussions with the business manager around the administrative table of how we're going to make this work. Here's another blow. What are we going to cut? Then when we get on each other's nerves, and everyone's trying to protect their territory and the scheduling, and you have no idea the time and energy and thoughtfulness that goes into every single thing that we decide. The summer was incredible with the meetings, and how can we achieve what we need to achieve with as least damage as possible. So I think that